Welcome to Wild and Exposed, your number one adventure, nature, and outdoor photography podcast. Wild and Exposed is hosted by Mike Mauro, Ron Hayes, Jason Loftus, and Mark Raycroft. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome. What? You can't talk in the middle of my intro.
So far, so good, guys. Nice.
I'm going to keep this in there.
Welcome to another episode of Wild and Exposed podcast. We've got two guests. Well, actually, one guest host. And then we're welcoming back Isaac Spots for another episode. We are going to bring you something new tonight. It's going to be a pro tip episode eventually. But before we do that, we're starting a segment with Drew Hamilton from Discover Churchill. And Drew's been on with us several times. Everybody knows Drew at this point. We're having Drew Hamilton come on, and he's going to host Trivia Night for Wild and Exposed podcast. Isaac's the guest. We need to round it out with four people guessing. So, at least we'll have somebody else we can throw under the bus if we know nothing.
So I came up with these questions. I really hope they spark some good conversation tonight, and because you guys are at a time zone advantage here, since I'm coming to you from Central Time, Winnipeg. It's pushing 10 o'clock, so we'll just see where the night takes us.
So hang on, before you start, Mike. What are the categories for trivia?
So we're going to have three categories. It's going to be photography, wildlife, and conservation. But we'll see if Drew actually...
Unless Drew did not follow the guidelines.
I will tell you, your categories are what I decide. Like I am the trivia master. And so you are just darn lucky that I happen to pick the categories of wildlife, photography, and conservation for tonight's trivia questions. Whew, lucky you.
That worked out well.
Funny how that worked out.
But before we get started, we talked to you not too long ago, Drew. What's been going on since that last conversation?
Oh, it's actually all the things we talked about in that episode are happening. Like we're in the midst of getting back up to Churchill to start our Aurora season. We got guests showing up, and then we're rolling right into our Borealis and bear cubs package. So we're going to go see some polar bear cubs coming out of the den, and I mean it's just an exciting time. Most people think of that fall polar bear season for Churchill, but frankly, we're rolling into my favorite time. Aurora season here is one of the reasons I came. When I was in Alaska, I was driving 6-7 hours to go catch the Aurora, and now everybody's texting me tonight. They're texting me pictures they're taking with their phone out of their front porches in Churchill. So I'm having to watch on the explore.org webcam. You can tune in. They've got an Aurora cam on there, and it just, I don't know, it just hurts that I'm not there, but hopefully we'll be able to get there tomorrow. We're down in the big city because my old dog needed some ACL surgery. So we got him all patched up, and he's going to be 100% just in time for swimming season, which of course starts in July.
Before we got on the podcast, you were talking about I missed part of it. You were going to try to go back yesterday, but you couldn't.
Yeah. So we rolled up to the airport this morning, and they said, "Oh no, flight's canceled." So we ended up having a little scramble where we got a very cute Airbnb. So if anybody finds themselves in Winnipeg, I highly recommend the Airbnb at 290 Ferry Street. It's close to food delivery. They shovel the walks. It's great. Yeah, write that down. It's a delightful 3-bedroom, sleep 6 if you're friends.
Why did they cancel the flight? Was it bad weather or just plane down or what?
There is some weather going on up there right now. Alex is here with me, and he was just doing the conversions. The wind chill in the Fahrenheit, yesterday, I think a couple days ago, it hit 71 below. But it's a dry cold. Yeah. It really,
Oh yeah,
it makes all the difference.
Right.
Yeah.
No problem.
So I'll start racking my brains for cold weather tips for the
pro tip,
last part of the last segment. Yeah. Yeah.
I flew up to Alaska last night, and they were talking about a KP6 in Anchorage. What is that? Is that good?
So the KP index is basic. Functionally, it tells you how far north and south you can see the aurora. And so like a KP6 would be great in Anchorage. Like if you went up to Glen Alps or any of those secret spots that are not Glen Alps, you could have potentially gotten some really good shows. And it works going north too. So I was at a conference a few years ago with a guy from way up north in Canada. He was from Grise Fjord, and there was an aurora show, and he came out and watched it with me, and he was just blown away. I said, "Don't you see this all the time?" He said, "No, I'm from too far north to see the northern lights."
Oh.
So that KP index tells you kind of how far off of center the aurora will be potentially visible. So a KP6 would be good in Anchorage, or even further south than Anchorage, frankly. But in Churchill, we like 1s and 2s. And so there are a lot of other things that go into the aurora. And not that a 6 would be bad in Churchill, we'll take it. But honestly, one of the best shows I've ever seen was a KP2 in Churchill. And, you know, a lot of times, particularly because I did a lot of hunting around Anchorage, where you tend to be looking, kind of down towards the horizon. Here I'm pointing at the horizon like people are seeing me, but that's just for the YouTube viewers. YouTube viewer, whoever that is, and
Oh, ouch!
but you'd see him like down and out. No, everybody listens. It comes automatically into my phone. I don't have to go on YouTube anymore. Which I got a different funny story about you guys. I'll tell you later. But anyway, yeah. So you're looking kind of out at him. But what's great about Churchill and its location, and it really makes for some striking photos, is since it's located right under the auroral oval, which you can get, auroras at 1s and 2s on that KP index. A lot of times you're looking straight up at them, or with your foreground element, you can have the aurora, like even if you've got a kind of small foreground, the aurora will fill the frame all the way up. And so it's a different angle, but it's an important angle. Photography is all about angles and light, and it's no different in aurora photography. So we're rolling into aurora season here. We got our photography packages and things like that starting up next week. So we'll be talking a lot about that in the field, I'd imagine.
One more question on the KP thing. Is that
I'm asking the questions tonight.
does it go? What's the number? So does it go KP1 to KP20, or is it 10? Or
that would be too nice and round. No, it goes 1 to 9. Because that makes sense.
So a 9 is not that great.
No, a 9 is.
It is if you're in Wyoming. If you're in Wyoming,
yeah.
9 is awesome because we can actually see
it's
it.
further north and south.
You can't because you live around too many city lights, but we can see it.
Well, and then you get some potentially big events. Like you think back to this is before my time, but the Carrington event of 1859. It was observed in Puerto Rico.
Wow,
What?
Really?
I don't even know what that would be. Yeah, Puerto
So
Rico.
that'd be like a
we got hit with the big slug.
KP27.
Off the charts.
Mm.
And then, there are other notable events, like the 1989 Quebec blackout. Anytime you've got aurora going and it messes with your magnetic field, if you have wires that run through that field, it will produce electricity. And so that's what messed up the power grid in Quebec in 1989. There was a huge blackout. If you think of big wires that run under the auroral oval, it's not technically a wire, but it functions like a wire. You think of the Alaska pipeline that runs right under the auroral oval. Well, it's a big wire full of oil. You don't want it producing electric current as well. So the Alaska pipeline is actually aurora proofed.
And what is that? Just like isolated or what?
It's above my pay grade. I don't know what they do specifically, but it's important.
Yeah.
That is a very
No,
important
it totally
job.
makes sense, but you got to wonder what they do to keep that
They
up.
put rubber tires under all the pillars.
And we have plenty of extra rubber tires.
Everybody in Churchill wears a lot of hats. It's a small town. And so one of my jobs in Churchill is I am the trivia master, or one of the trivia masters. We do rotate. And so every few weeks, it'll be my turn to come up with a round of trivia. We'll go over to the Legion and start asking questions. So this really, when you guys asked me to do this was right up my alley. And so I was able to customize some questions specifically for you guys on specific topics. And so
I wish we'd have known that before we asked you, to be honest.
Well, I don't take joy in stumping people.
We need to, we need to do like C-League type questions.
Well, so I think our format for tonight, I've got your names written in a little thing here, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to ask the question and have each of you give your answer independently. So everybody is going to have to answer the question. And then if you get it right, I'm just going to put a little tick next to your name, and then we will see who. Is there a prize tonight? Is it just we playing for respect of our peers, or what?
This one is respect, but I think we want to work it into some sort of pay.
We're going to work on some prizes, but this is the kickoff.
But this is going to be. I'm a little worried about how dumb I'm going to.
You guys could give yourselves all wild and exposed hats.
Yeah.
How do I not have one of those yet?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a good question. You need to talk to Mike about that.
I think we.
Isaac has one.
I didn't think we.
I'm going to have Ray go grab one from your house, Michael, so I can get one.
I'm actually here in Anchorage,
You lost
so I'll
it?
send you one.
Okay. So where should we start? Let's start with a photography question. And this is going to be true or false. True or false.
Oh.
True or false. When shooting the northern lights in very cold temperatures, it is important to have a high-quality UV filter on the lens to prevent the lens from frosting up. Michael.
False.
You got to say why.
No. That's for
What
the
makes you
discussion
say
later.
that? Yeah, because
okay.
everybody's got to give their answer, and then we'll discuss.
Right.
So Michael says false. Ron, what do you say?
I say false.
Okay. Isaac?
Also false.
Jason?
I'm going to go with false too.
Okay, everybody. Circle gets the square. That's a win for everybody.
Oh, wow.
So, well, you probably get a lot of questions at the camera shop there about this, right, Isaac?
Yeah, I get a few here and there.
Well, it's interesting. It's actually one of the easiest ways to ruin a night of Aurora shooting is to have a UV filter on. And I've definitely had people do this, and we do cover it in orientation. We talk about everybody take your filters off if you happen to have them on there. But it's one of those situations where you're taking these pictures, you're excited, it's the heat of the moment, and then it looks great on the back of your camera, but then when you put them on your computer, it's going to have these little concentric rings that go all the way through your image that you aren't necessarily going to pick up on. But I've had on multiple occasions people loving what they're shooting out in the field, and then when we get back to look at it in Lightroom, the image, the whole night has been potentially ruined by having a UV filter on there. Now, I can't explain, maybe I'll stumble into the camera shop in Jackson one day and ask about lens coatings and stuff like that and see what actually causes it. But in the meantime, everybody know that when you go out to shoot the Aurora, take all your filters off if you have them on.
So Ron and I just did a podcast with Simone Dutremont. He is a nighttime sky photographer, and he started talking about all these color wavelengths and all this color, and that's why I was like, it's got to be messing with the Northern Lights, and it's that color thing. And he was talking about, what was it?
They take all the filters off, so they could helium or hydrogen. Sorry, the wavelength of hydrogen is present in some of these deep space objects, and it's Simone Dutremont. You had it right, but the wavelength of hydrogen, and it's some variation of hydrogen, some isotope of hydrogen, like hydrogen 12, say, but the filters in our camera don't allow you to capture that color. So and I was going in a whole different direction. I just thought having a filter of any kind on the end of your camera is going to trap air between the lens and the filter and cause problems when it's 71 below zero. But
well, however you got there, you got to the right answer.
Yeah, I'll take it.
All right, I wanted to start you guys off on a. I thought you guys were all going to get that one, so I chose that one first. Now we're going to take it up a notch. We're going to go into the wildlife category.
You went ahead and allowed us to build our confidence back up after you destroyed it talking about our one YouTube follower?
Yeah, just wait. This one's going to be good. Okay.
All right.
So this one, I think we might even have talked about this concept on a podcast I was on. I never remember what I say on these things. I tend to just black out and I don't know what comes out of my mouth, but I'm pretty sure this would have come up. So this process caused by repeated benign interactions is defined as the reduction in intensity or duration of a response to a stimulus. And this is in the wildlife category. Shall I read it again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a lot of words. A lot of words in that one. This process, on which we all rely for our photography, is caused by repeated benign interactions. It's defined as the reduction in intensity or duration of a response to a stimulus. And it is probably the most misused term in relation to bears.
I'm probably underthinking this one.
Then you're first, Ron. Go.
Okay, habituation.
Okay. That's Ron's guess. Michael? Habituation for our YouTube viewer.
Yep,
There we go. All right.
That was my guess.
Isaac?
I'll go with the same thing.
All right. Jason, what you gonna do? What you gonna do?
I wonder what I might say. I honestly, I wouldn't have got that, and I don't know, but I'm going to go with habituation because that sounds right.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put you all down for another little tally mark here because you were all correct.
You know, that was the Polly Hessing interview, right?
And we probably talked about it with Derek Stonerov, too. It's something that comes up quite frequently in the wildlife world. And I know it's something, with all the work I do with brown bears and polar bears, it's something that I rely on. All the bears I take people to see are habituated. And why that's important and why it's important to understand the difference between how it frequently gets misused. And what made me think of this question is I was watching a YouTube video the other day, and a guy was talking about how bears were habituated to human trash, which is not the right use of the word. And I've actually at bear conferences had professional biologists get up and use it that way. And it's just not quite right. Like, you can wrap your mind around, what they're talking about, but it's not technically correct. So what they're saying when they say something is habituated to human trash is that it has learned to ignore human trash. And so, like, the bears in Katmai that we go out and photograph are habituated through a repeated benign interaction. They have lost their response up to a point. You don't cross the lines and things like that. You follow the rules. But that's what allows us to get those really natural photographs of wildlife, is that they're able to put aside the fact that we are there and go about their business like we're not there, really. So it's really something that can be used to our advantage.
If you go back and listen to Polly's interview or that podcast that Drew and I did with Polly, she said that the habituation exists between the bears as well, right? Because they feed in such close quarters. They've just learned that over the years, the food source is there. There's no reason to fight over it. They can all feed, and that becomes something that they're habituated to. And then that just carries over almost to the human side of thing too. It's just another being there, and the bears are like, yeah, as long as that being isn't going to mess with my mojo or get too close or get in the comfort zone, that they're cool with it.
Like with these bears, I really think of it as three kinds of habituation that are going on. And so you've got, first off, with the Alaska Peninsula bears, we've got bear-bear habituation. They're used to each other, right? So then that is not a far leap from bear-human habituation. And that is them getting used to humans as long as we behave in predictable, benign ways. And then the third is whatever the last one I said, just the opposite. So human, did I mention it's late here?
Yeah.
Human bear habituation. And that's us getting over our preconceived notions of bears and what bears may or may not be in order to behave in that predictable, benign way that the bears like. And so it's those three processes that make things like McNeil River or Brooks Falls or Katmai or Lake Clark, wherever you're going to see bears in Alaska. It's that process, those three things working in concert to make it successful and safe.
Yeah, and it doesn't exist in Yellowstone, for example.
Right.
It's just different.
Well, you're right. It is different.
So think about it from this perspective. If those bears in Yellowstone don't have that initial bear habituation that gets them that far along the path, like, for example, 399 is, we won't get into food conditioning or anything like that, but on some level, she is habituated to people behaving in a predictable way on the roads or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like that is habituation, but her tolerance is because she doesn't necessarily have that original bear habituation. That's why you just got to give, yes, she's a habituated bear, but she's habituated to having more space. So giving bears more space is always a great option.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, you could write a whole book on this topic.
Let's have Polly Hessing do that. That was a fascinating episode.
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
We're going to all have to write our answers down because Ron's not going to carry this thing for all.
I knew that was coming.
Is that, do we want to switch it up halfway through? All right, how many questions have I asked? Two? I got two for everybody.
We're only two in.
Okay. Well, so since we related that last question to bears, this one you're not going to have to write down because I don't think anybody's going to get it. This is a stumper. So along the bear lines, and Polly Hessing brings it up. So McNeil River in Alaska is the largest congregation of brown bears anywhere on Earth. What is the largest number of bears ever officially observed at McNeil River Falls at one time?
Everybody's got to write it down.
Write it down.
Ooh, I see Mike's competitive side coming out.
I'm totally guessing.
So whoever's closest without going over.
Oh, are we doing Price is Right rules?
Yeah, right.
One bear, Bob.
Can you repeat it, Drew, for Isaac?
Yes. What is the largest number of bears ever officially observed at McNeil River Falls at one time?
I've got In Wild We Trust the book over here. Can I go over there and consult that?
Negative.
You know what? I bet that's not in there.
I might not,
because that was after. Was Larry there? Larry was there for that. So
he was.
It might be
in there.
Yeah.
So you guys need to give me about a half an hour.
Page 315.
All right.
Is your answer written down?
Yes.
All right, Drew. It's on you.
Okay, no, Isaac, what's your guess?
Yeah, let's see what Isaac has.
My wild guess, because I have no clue, was 71.
Ooh,
71 is not too shabby.
That's
not
a pretty good guess.
Shabby. Yeah. Okay, we'll put that in there. Okay, Jason.
My guess was 125.
125.
Yep.
Is a little ambitious, but
a little ambitious.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. and I'll talk about that in a minute. All right, Ron, what do you say?
Well, my favorite number is 44, but I know you guys have seen more than 50 there already. Just listen to your conversations. So I'm just going to add a 1 on the front of it, and I'm going to go 144.
Whoa.
144. Oh, I thought you were going to say 441, but
no, okay. I'm not going to go that.
So 144. That, interestingly, is I think the most number of bears observed over the course of a season. Almost right on.
And individual bears?
Individual bears over the course of the season. I think the record's still 144.
Oh wow!
So that's an important number.
You are a lucky dog there, Ron. Nice work.
All right, Michael. What's your answer?
I did 78.
Oh, it's almost I've said that on a podcast with you before. Oh.
You little cheater.
All right, Michael.
You're close, Isaac.
Tick mark here for you. No, Isaac pulled that out of nowhere. That was pretty impressive.
That was very impressive.
And you know where 144 came from?
Doubling 77?
The Google.
Oh, did you Google that?
You cheater.
I saw you messing around with your phone.
Well,
So
I
that's
carried
where
you
you
guys
got
on the
the-
first one. So, yeah, that was the number of individuals. I just wrote down the first number that I saw from the
That
From
is
the
sly Googling there. That's see on actual trivia night at the Legion in Churchill. We don't put up with that.
You get the boot.
You get the boot, and we already covered it. 71 below out there, so you are screwed.
Yeah, that's trouble. That's trouble.
Well, so the reason I put this question in here is timeliness. Right now, I don't know when this is gonna air. When will this be on? Before the end of February?
Yep.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
reason- So the reason I put this one in here is as a casual reminder to everybody that's interested in going to McNeil River that you can apply for permits until the end of February. So, I worked out at
Perfect.
McNeil River for a bunch of years. 6 years I was out there, and Michael mentioned In Wild Trust, which is a great book about Larry Allmiller, who was out there for 30 years. Great bear people out there, Tom Griffin. Just some really legendary bear guides have gone through there. And if you would like to go to McNeil River, now is your time to apply. It's all done on a permit system, so you have to apply through a lottery. You get 4 days. You bring your own tent. You camp out, and every day they take 10 people into the sanctuary to go watch bears. And it's really quite unique in that you've got a limited number of people who can go in there. And there's just something kind of magical about knowing that you're the only people in this really magnificent, life-changing place. And if you're a student of bear behavior, you can learn more at watching bears at McNeil River with those high-quality guides than you can in a lifetime of some of their, because you have all these bears. I mean, like I said, 78 bears at one time. And they're all doing something different. So you're watching one bear's fishing over here, one bear's fighting over there. I mean, it's just it's chaos, but it's beautiful chaos. So for anybody that is interested in applying for McNeil River, go to actually Friends of McNeil River website. You can click on the McNeil River link, and it'll talk you through the process there. And there's some videos about what camp life is like and what you can expect and things like that. So for bear fans, it's a pilgrimage everybody should take at some point.
Drew, when you apply for that, can you apply as a group, or is that like if you wanted to go with another, like your partner, or you wanted to go with like 2 or 3 people, or is it just you apply and you're the only one that gets to go if you're selected?
You can have up to 3 names on your permit. And so you have to know all the people that are going with you when you apply. So, because these permits are not transferable, so there's no like black market for the permits after you're not going to see them popping up on Craigslist like a Denali Road Lottery or something like that.
Right.
They're not transferable. It really, it's the whole summer. It's an 80-day season, and it's divided into 20 4-day blocks. And so you give them your top few choices, and then the computer goes through and picks who goes where and whatnot, and you give them different preferences and things like that, and then it all shakes out. But for folks that are looking for Alaska or looking for bears or looking for something different, maybe a little less crowded, people who like camping, whatever, put it on your list. I just wanted to give it a shout. And I know we've talked about it a bunch of times on the show, but it really is a bit of a hidden gem. What's different about it than other places is in the mandate. It's managed by the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. In the mandate, in the charter that started the whole program in 1967, it says bears come first. All other uses of this land are secondary. So if the viewing program went away tomorrow, they would still be in their mandate because the bears come first.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that puts Michael in the lead, you guys.
That does. And I'm hurt by
kind
that.
of-
So give me another question.
Mr. Google.
That's why Mike said.
I put my phone away.
Okay.
That's why Mike said everybody write it down because he knew the answer.
Right. Yeah, exactly. He already had it. Did you see the graphic design that went into that?
Yeah.
Hold that up again.
Yeah, hold on a sec. I got two of them. I did it twice.
It's like bubble letters, like
I
you used to
lost
do
it.
when you were a kid.
What did I do with that?
He was just killing time.
Don't act like it's not laminated sitting there on your.
Oh, there it is. Yep. Look at that bad
Yep,
boy.
look at that.
It's like a
That's gonna look
NASCAR.
good on your.
It's like a NASCAR number.
That's gonna look good on your fridge later.
Yep. The first inaugural question answered right.
Okay, well let's get back to some questions here. So let's go back to a photography question here and see what people have to say. And this is actually two and one, and you get a half a point. Am I making this too complicated? For
Nope,
myself? No.
nope.
You get a half a point for each correct answer. And we are going to write them down because we've had some shenanigans already, Ron. Yeah. So, are you guys ready?
Ready?
The first, let's see. The first digital camera was developed by what company in what year? Ooh. The first digital camera was developed by what company in what year? Ron, what are you doing?
I'm thinking. I'm
Hold your
staring
hand.
down
Thinking.
at my
Oh.
Show us your hands.
staring down at my paper.
Show us your hands.
Google's thinking.
Earlier, I thought he was taking selfies, but he was cheating.
I had no idea how many bears. Okay.
Wow.
I've got my answer.
Mine's a total guess.
Yeah, mine's a total guess too.
All right. Well, Jason was the first in with that confident I've got it. So let's start with him.
Oh, I didn't say that. I just said I have my answer.
It sounded good.
All right. So I said Olympus in 1996.
Okay. Isaac.
Wild guess.
Wild guess, but Fuji 1990.
Fuji 1990. Okay. Michael.
I did Kodak in 1977.
Okay.
77 for digital.
And
You were definitely the oldest in 77.
oh, he went there. Okay, Ron, I couldn't read that.
Oh, it was backwards. Sorry.
Was it just your
said
search history?
Sony in 2000.
Sony in 2000. Okay. Well, so I didn't know this off the top of my head. I had to Google this myself. So the first actual digital still camera was developed by Eastman Kodak engineer Steve Sasson in 1975.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now he's up
Said
1 point.
We'll give Michael a half point for that.
Were you guys buddies?
I had
You just couldn't remember what year he developed it or what?
I
The
had
70s were a fuzzy time.
I had one of the first Kodak digital cameras. That's the only reason I chose Kodak.
Well, it's kind of fascinating. It went on to say that he built a prototype, and it gives the patent number and everything, from a movie camera lens, a handful of Motorola parts, 16 batteries, and some newly invented Fairchild CCD electronic sensors.
Okay, so he used Motorola parts, which were sold to Sony.
That Olympus made.
Can I get at least a quarter point out of that?
No. We should be watching. We should be taking points away. All right, Michael gets a 0.5 there. Yeah. So which prompted these questions all got my wheels turning, and so I wanted to ask you guys, like, what were the first digital cameras you guys used, or did you start in film, or like what were your origins here?
Yes, started in film. Not as early as Mike did, but I started in film, and then literally Minolta sold their mount, the E-mount, to Sony. and Minolta basically went out of business. Everything turned into Sony.
So were you using Minolta back then?
Yeah, my first camera was Minolta. It was cheap. And I had a 75 to 300 lens. That was my big wildlife kit. And it was a very cheap setup. And then as soon as they sold the mount to Sony, the only reason I went to Sony right away is because my Minolta lenses worked on the Sony had the E-mount. So that is why I went there. And then later switched to Canon because I got a great deal on a 100 to 400 and a Canon 50D back in the day.
50D. Yeah.
My first camera was a Kodak. Digital camera was a Kodak. And I've always been infatuated with the new latest and greatest. So it was just an early adopter kind of thing. And it was just fun. It wasn't high quality. They were really small megapixel cameras and more like a point and shoot than anything. And it just worked. But I was still shooting, film for the quality stuff and then digital for the fun stuff. And I if I remember correctly, Kodak came out with a great big body. It was probably 2 times the size of a regular pro body as far as tall. And so it had the hard drive, I think, built in it. And it was a Kodak, but it had a Canon mount on it.
Is that the one that had the giant disc, the 3.5-inch floppy that went into it?
No, I don't think that one had that.
No, you had to throw the sheet over your head, and then the fire went off for the flash. I think that's what he's talking about. So Isaac, what was your digital epiphany, or have you always been digital, or?
Yeah, I've always been digital. I'm too much of a young buck, I suppose. My first digital my grandma got for me when I was 10. It was just a small Canon point and shoot. I don't even remember what it was, but nothing too crazy. And then when I was 13, I saved up my money from a theater gig I did and bought a Nikon D30-200 was my first legit camera.
And Jason, where did you start? What was your?
Well, yeah. So believe it or not, I actually did start with film. When I was 8 years old, my mom gave me one of those 24 exposure, roll, click, roll, disposable cameras. Yeah, no, just joking. But when I first got serious about photography, it was with digital, and that was probably in 2004. And I think my first body I bought was a D5000 Nikon. So,
okay. So let me ask you this then. So we've got, Jason, you were started in digital, but you did have a background in the brownie cams or whatever.
Right.
And then Michael and Ron, you guys started with film, and Isaac, you're a purely digital, you're a product of the digital age, right? So one of the things I've been noticing lately is that, people that have grown up in a completely digital environment, I think have a certain advantage in the modern photography business, just in ways of seeing things and editing things. And I was wondering, in your perspective, if it comes back to, people that started with film, that's when you had film, that's what you had. Like, you had certain constraints, and now all of a sudden those constraints are gone. A lot of those constraints are gone. And I feel that there's a lot of potential, different creative ways of thinking, and particularly you, Jason, because you started getting big time with digital, but you still had that, the constraint of that 35 millimeter film maybe in the back of your head. What does that? Am I on the right track with anything there?
I totally think so. Because you were so limited back in the film days. Is you had to have the light. You're shooting with such slow ISOs and then that carries over, and so to see what you can do now, to be Isaac now, to start out with all this and the sky's the limit and that dynamic range that you can do anything with, I think you got to just evolve with it, right? That's going to be that's why I've always been that early adopter, because you want to evolve with whatever you're doing if you're going to stay relevant.
No, yeah, I mean, it's just totally different. I feel like now, especially since I started off in digital, you didn't have Lightroom and Photoshop and everything in the film days. So I feel like, being mostly digital, my brain is kind of thinking of how I'll process things too, whereas it was totally different. We didn't even have that kind of, mental space at all. I feel like back in the day, you had to kind of nail it right then and there.
Take it right the first time.
One other thing that just came out of that Simone podcast that I was referencing earlier is he said something and it just stuck with me. But he said he was talking about taking lots of wildlife pictures, and he's like, "Take them; they're free." And I'm like,
Yep.
You're kind of right, because it is. Back in the day with film, you had 36 exposures, and you had to buy the film and pay for that processing of each roll. So you're talking, I don't remember what it was, $6 or $7 by the time you bought the film and the processing. So a big trip for me to Denali to photograph was 100 rolls of film. So I had to come up with $700 plus pay for the trip. And so you coveted each one of those, you'd have something hot going on in front of you, and you were maybe at like 24, you already shot 24 on the roll, and you're like, do I waste that 12 pictures and put in a new roll, or do I chance it and hope that these next 12 pictures are going to get it? Whereas nowadays, it's free. You just shoot.
Now people complain about that 20 frames a second is too slow.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you're also in control over more of the artistic process from snapping, just like Isaac was saying, that you are, as you're taking the picture, you're already thinking about post-processing as opposed to sending them off and having someone else functionally interpret your art.
Well, and the way that Jason shoots, in using the light, you were worried about just getting a proper exposure. You weren't worried about, how can I darken those shadows and, just get the tips of those tines in the light. There wasn't that flexibility or that, I don't even know what you'd call it, that opportunity necessarily back in the day. So digitally you can do so much more. You can be so much more creative because you've got it right there at your fingertips, and you get a preview of it right when you shoot it if you want.
I tell people that all the time. Look at the back
instead
of
of
your
waiting
camera.
2 weeks, 3 weeks before you get any feedback. Yep. I used to think it took 6 months because my mom would take the film in, and I used to think it would take 6 months to process the film and then when they moved, I found this drawer, and there's like 60 rolls of film in this drawer. I'm lucky I ever got anything back.
Was all your allowance going to film developing?
Yeah, actually.
What were you going to say, Jason?
I was just going to say it's an interesting perspective Drew has, and I don't disagree, but there's a lot of times I've thought that it's somewhat of a disadvantage too, and I just guess it's perspective. But I think somebody that's grown up in film and has transitioned to digital has a couple things going for him. One is a real understanding about how cameras work and how light works and all that stuff works together. And then also they have an appreciation for the value and the benefits of the things that we have now. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of newer photographers just get out there and start shooting, and they take a lot of this stuff for granted, and myself included. But
The handling of light back in the film days, if you were proficient, you could have got that, but you had to know everything. You could have got your shot, Jason, back in the day, but you better knew that was what you were after, not just, being able to look at not even happenstance, but you're able to look at the back of your camera and say, yeah, I got it, or no, I need to adjust this. And you can do it in a matter of seconds if you know what you're doing.
Right.
But back then you just had to get it, or, and you just waited to figure out if you did get it. The other bad thing about the film days that was a disadvantage is you could push film. You could push it or pull it. So if you were shooting a 50 ISO film, you could push it to 100, but then you had to mark it and keep track of that, and then make sure that the lab was going to push process that film to get it into a certain, so that and if you mixed up rolls, you'd screw it up. Or if you shot half the roll and then something really good happened, then you pushed half of the roll, they had to go in and cut. It's just too much to talk about.
Guiding trips since, I don't know, whenever, 99, whenever started doing this, and watching the transition, and it was really finally, from film to digital, it was really finally just maybe 5 or 6 years ago where I wouldn't see any film cameras at all. Like there was usually like one person that would
the holdout
bring the film. I would call it nostalgia, call it whatever. That's what they knew. There was always one, and you could always pick them out because you'd have everybody lined up taking a picture of a bear or whatnot, and then you'd hear that, flipping it. I don't know how that's gonna go, and everybody would kind of stop and be like,
"Whoa!"
Oh. But now I do think analog's coming back into fashion at some point. It came back, and so I've got a guy who's coming out this next summer that we're going to be shooting, or he's going to be shooting some film. Hopefully, be able to do some cool double exposures and things like that. And it's really kind of a retro feel. So we'll see how that turns out.
What did you start out with, Drew?
I started out with I had all sorts of versions of like the little, like Jason was talking about. But then my parents were in the newspaper business. And so I had free run of the darkroom at the newspaper when I was relatively young. And so then my mom gave me her AE1 with a 50 millimeter go have fun kind of lens. And so I could go, I had access to all this, and I could develop them myself, which was a ton of fun. I could go in there and dodge and burn to my heart's content. Can still conjure the smells associated with it. So, I started out with film, and then the first digital camera I bought was a Canon A720, I think. That was just one of those that had a flip screen and stuff. It was so much fun. And then the first DSL, it's late here. Was the 40D. And I think I got that in 2008, I think. And that was the first fancy cam, we'll call it. And still, I just posted a picture a couple days ago that I took on that camera. I'm like, damn, that was a fun rig. But what got me thinking about this whole film versus where people started out was a few years ago. I was here in Churchill and doing a polar bear trip, and we had this beautiful polar bear in side light, and I was telling people how to darken down and shadows and channel your inner Jason Loftus kind of thing. And one of the guys said, well, why don't you just do that in post? And it just kind of stopped me in my tracks. And I think I actually resorted to the "cause I said so" technique. But yeah, he did have a point. You do have that much control over your creative process. You could do that in post, but I'm still a big fan of taking it right the first time.
Right. Well, I'll say that in my experience, which is very limited, I probably shouldn't be the one talking about this, but I've learned that if you get it right in camera and create that in the camera, it always looks much more natural than when you try to do it after the fact. So
exactly.
Thank you for justifying my.
I told you so.
I told you
right,
so.
Exactly.
Because that is how you do it.
If you haven't got a chance to ever develop a roll of film, like black and white, get a film camera and shoot black and white, and then go process it yourself, it is a ton of fun. It's like what you were saying, Drew. You could sit and dodge and burn, and you could create. It's a manual Photoshop, but you just kind of learn the whole thing, and it, that smells of it. When I first started out, I couldn't afford too much, so I turned my kitchen into a darkroom, and I had to wait till nighttime, and then I'd cover all the windows, and you'd have to have the water going, and it was a blast. I mean, I still have an enlarger if anybody wants one.
You gonna put it in the van?
Dark
room in the back of the van.
That would be cool. Just sit out and camp and process images. That would be a blast. Where I got to do it. This is dragging on and on, but my first job was with Mesa Verde National Park as a park ranger, and I worked as an interpretive park ranger, which I wasn't an interpreter, but it was the only job open. And so I was working in the museum, and I saw that they had a dark room, but nobody ever used it. And when I talked to the bosses, they were like, "Oh yeah, go ahead and use whatever you want, and knock yourself out." And they had paper, stacks and stacks of photographic paper and chemicals and all that stuff. So I would just sit in the museum at night and just process the heck out of just Mesa Verde. If anybody's been to Mesa Verde, it's all the archaeological ruins and cliff dwellings. And you could get
It's a very cool spot.
Yeah, you could get some cool images in there. Oh my.
Okay, so should we do it? Well, let's take a look at the standings. Or do you guys want to? Let's see.
No, we know he's a point and a half
won.
ahead.
Yeah.
My spreadsheet, though. I've got a spreadsheet and formulas and stuff like that. Well, anyway, so yeah, I think we all know who's in the lead by a whopping 1.5 points. But we do have 2 questions left, I believe. And so we're going to dive right into it. This takes us into the...
do we have Final Jeopardy after that?
I could probably root around in my computer and find some more trivia questions here. If we want to keep it going, we can. But we do have pro tips and things like that to talk about.
2 more is good, yeah.
2 more is good. Okay, so this is delving into the conservation realm. So this Canadian national park, established in 1996, protects important denning habitat for the western Hudson Bay population of polar bears.
You just freaking said this on the last podcast.
I know.
Too, and
I did say this on the last podcast.
And I cannot remember.
Yeah, show us your hands, Ron.
Oh, hey, my
that was
phone.
a pretty good Ron impression.
That's
My
what
Siri woke up.
So all I did last time was mute my mic, "Hey Siri," and then hold it up to my headphones so Drew was talking into it, and Drew was asking Siri the question.
Oh, dang, that is next level. I should have been ordering stuff from Amazon.
Oh, doggone it. I know where it is based on you guys' description, but I cannot remember the name.
This Canadian national park, established in 1996, protects important denning habitat for the western Hudson Bay population of polar bears, which of course is near and dear to my heart because those are the polar bears that live in my backyard in Churchill.
Is that park part of where you guys are going on your...
Yes, that is where they're
It
going.
is. We are
which
going
is
to
why they
venture
said
into
it.
the park
and
of this
I can't
name.
remember.
God.
Doggone it.
Yeah. You got me. I'm going to guess.
Yep. This is
Is
going to be
anybody going to write anything down?
No, I got nothing.
So what we can learn from this is that Ron doesn't listen to his own podcast.
Mike edited it.
Well, here's the deal.
And he doesn't listen either.
Yeah, I edited the whole thing and I can't remember. Oh.
Does anybody have a guess?
No.
Oh man.
But I just saw a video from there on Netflix
Yeah, you
tonight
did.
because they climbing out of the den, climbing on mom's back.
Does it start with an A?
Yep.
No.
There's no. Does it start with an A? Does it start with an A-N?
Could I buy a vowel? Where is Mark Raycroft when you need him?
Right.
He would know this.
He would
right.
not know. He would not.
He would know this. He would know this. Well, so it's the name is actually the Cree word for polar bear.
Oh.
That
Which
doesn't
is-
help.
That didn't help?
No, sorry.
No. Okay.
My Cree's
so
a little
we're
rusty.
talking a little rusty. We're talking about Wapusk National Park. Wapusk National Park. That was
You know, I would not have gotten that.
No.
no.
It did have an A in it.
Well,
Good job, Mike.
it did. It did. No credit for that. No credit for that. Well, So I was going to talk about. Well, no, I put this one in there because coming up next month, this is when the polar bear cubs are going to be emerging from their dens, and so it's a very important time to have protected areas like that, to protect those denning areas, especially in populations like the Western Hudson Bay.
I should have remembered this because I went right up and told my wife I want to go on this trip, but I have to do it this year because they may not get it next year. I don't know, and she said no.
Well, ask me again in a month. I think we're heading out there.
You'll know
about the time. Actually, when this episode's airing, I'll probably be out there looking for the cubs. So I'll have to report back and let you know how it went. And
I'm sure you'll.
Yeah. So we
us.
should probably just move on from this question.
Hold on,
yeah, we better.
Yeah.
I got one more question about that though, Drew. How long do they use that denning area? Is that something where they'll hang out there for a month, or will they hang out there for 2 weeks? Or when they come out, do they go back in and then leave, or what's that? How's that go?
Every bear is different, and so it really, these bears all have unique personalities. They all have unique ways of dealing with the world. They make life and death decisions on a daily basis. Some of these moms are going to come out, and these cubs, they're born in the dens. They go this is their. Some of them will go straight out to the sea ice. They're trying to get out on the sea ice before seal pupping. In the spring, because that's really the time when these bears are going to put on the most fat is during seal pupping, and it's basically, think of these. The ice has a bunch of like fat McNuggets just scattered about, so these bears can really. So a lot of these females, they went into the den in the fall, and they came off the ice last January, so they haven't really eaten much of anything that's going to provide fat, which is what they need to get through, since July. And so if they have 2 or 3 cubs, they're coming out there, they're 15 pounds ish. I just use that number for math purposes, but they haven't eaten a real meal since the summer or end of the, whenever the ice kicked them off. And then they're just getting out there now or next month. Like, it really is an impressive process. So when you think about things on like how the ice regime is changing and things like that, that's where you're going to start to see stress, because they're already going that long without eating. And so when a female body size or body mass reaches a certain threshold, they just stop reproducing. So it's really kind of an interesting time to be able to see these cubs coming out and heading straight out for their first trip on the sea ice.
How far is that trek from the denning site to the sea ice? How far are they going?
It's going to depend which route they take. It could be 20, 30 miles. Well, not quite that far. A lot of times they'll follow the rivers out, so it'll just be kind of like highways heading out there. But to go back to your original question, some of the moms are going to hang out inland for a little bit. Some of them are going to head straight out. It really is up to whatever that mom feels this year or whatever she's done in the past that's worked. It's going to vary bear to bear.
Huh? And then how many bears are denning? Can you just say it's between 10 and 25, or is it unknown?
I don't have it's a number we could find out. We could call folks over at the park, and they do keep track of numbers like that. I don't have any recent estimates for
If you had to guess, what would you guess?
More than one?
144.
No, that's something I will look into, and I'll report back, because I need to brush up on my polar bear denning facts before we go in there and start looking for them.
Yeah, I'd love to know that. Just because.
Real quick, I was actually going to guess Yukusiksalik National Park.
Oh, that's over around the corner, actually.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
that's not the Western population, Jason, that you just Googled. That was a different one.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Just trying some Ron tricks.
No, but there are other. Think of Polar Bear Provincial Park, and there are other protected areas that protect the denning habitats and things.
That's
like
way
that
cool.
In different places. But this is the near and dear to my heart, Western Hudson Bay bears. So they're just cuter. No, they're all white and fuzzy. Okay, one more question. There was no change on that. So
Mike wins. This is a we're drawn dead on this thing.
Dead.
No,
He's-
this
it's
one's
a
worth.
walk-off
This one's
home
worth.
This
run.
is a
points.
2-pointer.
Yeah,
Yes.
let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Oh, this could put some of those Western State boys back in contention.
Boom,
Because
shakalaka.
I had you guys in mind when I crafted this question.
All right.
Oh boy.
And this is the last question. We're at 2 points. We're going to write our answers. Write them down. Everybody chuck your phone.
Show your
Nice,
hands.
Ron.
Okay. In the United States, what government agency manages the most onshore public lands by acre? Like just as the units. It doesn't. You just need to come up with the agency. Agency. What agency manages the most public lands?
I got it.
Ron's got a very confident
This-
look about him.
It may be wrong. It may be very
No,
misplaced confidence.
it doesn't matter if it's wrong. Just say it confidently.
BLM.
That's how I've gotten this far. Are you giving your answer to everybody else who's still writing?
No, they're done writing.
Are you done writing?
Except Isaac. I don't know. He's still staring down at his paper. Now, is this, you said the contiguous 48? Or is this every
The
state?
statistics I looked up included the entire United States.
That might change it.
No takebacks or
Yeah,
are we allowing
yeah,
takebacks?
no.
This is the first one we've done.
I'm going to...
Did you already say
Well,
your answer?
Yeah, but
We'll let-
I was basing it on the lower 48.
Right. But what was your answer?
My original answer was Bureau of Land Management.
That is your answer. You're done.
But if we're talking about Alaska, also,
Oh boy. Here we go.
I'm going to just switch it and say Department of Agriculture.
Oh, okay.
No, that's too broad. Got to take it down one step. Because
All right.
Right.
you know what, though? You know what? Never mind. I'll explain it after.
Yeah. Yeah, because one's Department of Interior. So I'm going to stay with Bureau of Land Management, even though it's wrong.
Is everybody done writing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
So, Michael, what did you write?
I said BLM.
Okay. Isaac?
To avoid embarrassment, I put no idea.
Okay.
It was a 2-pointer. You
even-
got to throw something down there.
Didn't even trust Ron on that. Jason, what do you got? What do you got?
It's
Forest
backwards.
Service.
U.S. Forest Service.
U.S. Forest Service.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think you're right.
I know I am.
So,
Maybe I'm
according
confident.
to Google,
Oh, you had to
see, I
use
have
the
it all
Google on this
copied.
one?
Yep. Let's see. The U.S. Forest Service in the Department of Agriculture manages 193 million acres national forest system. Okay, so that's 193. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in the Department of Interior manages 89 million acres national wildlife refuge system. The National Park Service in the Department of Interior manages 80 million acres in the National Park System. And the Bureau of Land Management in the Department of the Interior manages 244 million
Oh,
acres
man.
Listen to
of
that, cocky
public
pants.
lands.
Yeah, I know, huh?
That would have been
It was-
great, except Mike got it right as well.
Yeah. Oh, no change in order there. So, I that is, and I was looking these up and it was just fascinating. And it blew my mind to look at it in those numbers and just think how lucky we are to have public lands on that scale. Like so many places where they don't have that or they've lost that. It's just I wanted to throw that out there as something we should think about, and it's a heritage we should really cherish. And we're all public land users. We all take advantage
Absolutely.
of that. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to our public lands. And then on top, this is just federal. So on top of that, you have state parks. You have state refuge systems. You have municipal lands. You have different conservation areas. And so I just really, wanted to point out what a good thing going we have. Even the McNeil River that we talked about, that's managed by the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. So, and I used to work for the Alaska Department of Fish and Game in their Lands and Refuges program. So it is something that I enjoy talking up and bragging about, and it's something we need to always be vigilant to protect.
All right, so
that's 607 million acres with just the BLM, the Forest Service, the Fish and Wildlife, and the Park Service.
Yep.
That's huge.
Yeah,
You're probably pushing over 1 billion when you include all the other ones you mentioned. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because
those bigger. Once you get to that point, it's hard to even comprehend.
Right.
And you think about and some of those hidden gems, like there are state parks that not as many people go to.
Custer State Park in South Dakota is huge. It's a big park.
The one in Alaska that always jumps out is you've got Denali National Park, which gets all the fame and fortune, but then right across the highway you've got Denali State Park, which is fabulous as well. And it just doesn't get the airtime.
And you got Wrangell St. Elias,
big cousin gets,
which is
Wrangell
huge.
St. Elias,
Isn't that like 14 million acres by itself?
They're big. Katmai's, they're all big.
Yeah.
What's Yellowstone like? 2 million?
Yep.
So Katmai, I think, is 4. Lake Clark National Park.
Yep.
Yeah, it's an amazing system. And when you start to think about just how much is there,
We're lucky.
It's great.
Yep.
All right, so we are at an hour and 8 minutes. So quick pro tips, and let's. Yeah,
one pro tip.
Won't
Make it
we
quick.
won't limit it, but one each.
Yes, sir.
But it can be gear. It can be
It could be living in your truck.
It could be how to camp in your vehicle in the wintertime, that kind of thing. Yep, any of that.
Wow, what are we gonna do, Drew? I don't even know.
Isaac's our
first.
guest.
Oh, go ahead, Isaac.
What I tell people, especially getting into photography, especially wildlife photography, is just to get out and shoot. Is the main thing. Like, you can't get, you're not going to get any kind of photo just sitting on your couch, thinking about, well, I'm not going to be able to do it right, or I don't have the technical skills or whatever. Just get out. Just being out in nature is what it's all about in the first place. And then just taking pictures to have fun, and just getting out and getting experience in the field is what it's all about.
It's a good one.
Amen.
Well
Perfect.
said.
Jason, go ahead.
All right, I'm going to take a page of Mike's book and do a gear one this time. We've all talked about the heat system gloves that we all like, the heat company gloves. And they're great for real cold situations. But sometimes when it's really cold, they're a little bit, or when it's like midwinter conditions, it's a little bit too much sometimes. So I actually I've been looking for another pair of gloves that I could wear that are warm, that give me some functionality. And I found these, Kelly Elmer turned me onto them, but they're called Valorette, and it's the Markhoff Pro V3.
Yeah,
and
I've seen
these,
those. You guys
these
sell those,
gloves
don't you,
here.
Isaac?
Yeah, we sell them here. I love them. I use a few of those. Yep.
Do you? These things are amazing. They're comfortable. They've got the little finger that opens up so you have access. And it's funny, is I thought that there's a zipper on the back, and I thought it was for a hand warmer, but it's actually not. It could serve as one, but it's actually for to hold some extra tools and extra memory cards and stuff. Yeah. But anyways, I am going to use them in a week and a half here, or in the next week when I go, and report back on them. But everybody I've heard talk about them, they just love them. So it's another good option. And
Will they activate your screen?
No, you have to open the finger. They're a
Open
little
the finger.
thicker. They're a little too thick for that. Yeah.
That's what noses are for.
Yeah, that's right.
And you
Yep.
get
That's my touch screen.
then you get the snot swipe.
I have one more, if that's cool.
Yeah,
since
yeah,
you brought that
absolutely,
up,
absolutely.
that I just learned myself, that a lot of y'all listening could actually really, really use this tip, that I learned from Steve Perry, who does a lot of wildlife YouTube camera related YouTube videos. And I had no idea about this, and it was kind of life changing for me. Is if you're photographing in the cold conditions and you're driving around in your car, which a lot of us do, to find wildlife, and you've got your camera in the heat with you, once you find something and leave the heat, for one, if you don't know about the heat distortion, if you're shooting from inside of your car, you're not going to be able to get any sharp pictures because of the heat leaving the cold and the mixing of the air. But if you're outside of your car and you're using a lens with a big lens hood, you're actually not going to be able to get sharp pictures for the first like 15 or 20 minutes because there's actually still some warm air kind of sitting in the lens hood. And I didn't know this. So for the first like 15 or 20 minutes after you're outside of your car, I would just take the lens hood off because you're going to be so frustrated with how soft your images are. And I just learned that. And I was very frustrated with the same thing. But after, 15 or 20 minutes, your lens hood is the same temperature as the outside air and it's not a problem. But until that heat that's kind of balled up on the inside, it's it'll frustrate you for sure. So that's something I just learned from Barry, which I found very interesting.
Yeah, we just
so don't chuck your camera in the river in the first 15 minutes.
Right. We just had actually today a listener send that video link from Steve, and so yeah, and to go along with that, I do not turn the heat on in my car when I'm driving around in the wintertime because you don't want your camera equipment to warm up. Period.
Yeah,
because when you get out, it causes all kinds of problems.
That's why I don't ride with Ron, by the way. But just
I drive too slow is why he doesn't ride with Ron.
And it's not his road trip mix.
Yeah, I mean, I just ride a carriage. I do it the old-fashioned way.
Nice. That was a good one, Isaac.
Battery life is something that suffers in the wintertime. And so you're always looking for ways, a lot of us keep our batteries under like an interior pocket. So it's closer to your body. So it stays a little bit warmer. But another option to that is cold case gear makes it's an insulated case. And they make these in particular for your cell phone. However, the smaller camera batteries you can fit 3 or 4 of them inside the cold case gear, and it keeps your batteries warm as well as keeping you a little bit warmer inside. So because those batteries aren't directly, in contact with you, and they extend the life of your batteries when it's, in extreme cold. So I would strongly recommend you guys reach out to Cold Case Gear. You can find actually a link on our website. Correct, Mike?
Oh, yeah. It'll be on the show notes
We've got
page.
a link on there and in the show notes. And these cases are not real big, not real expensive, but they will extend the life of your batteries in cold weather shooting. And, we all use cell phones as a second camera now anyway, especially to get a little video clip here and there. So they definitely extend the life of your cell phone in that cold weather as well.
Drew, you need to start getting those and giving them to your clients because they'll love you for that.
Yeah, actually, it would be a great tool for you guys at 71 below zero.
Well, there's cold and then there's cold.
Right.
And Alex and I have had a few nights out there in those temperatures, and things just don't work.
Right.
Hold
the
on.
screens start going all wonky.
What's cold and cold? What is your example of 71
Where do
minus
you stop
71
shooting?
is yeah.
Probably in the like 50 minus 50 wind chill is well. I mean, it's you dress for it and you pick your spots and things like that, and you try to manage in different ways to. And we've had all sorts of creative solutions or creative attempts at creative solutions. One time I had a lady on a tour from Texas, and it was one of those cold. It was probably minus 40 wind chill or so, and so she'd been inside waiting for the Aurora, drinking wine, and her solution was, and this could be my pro tip. This is great. So those adhesive toe warmer pads.
Yeah.
She was inside drinking wine, and she was sticking those to her face.
Mark does that
because
too.
they're adhesive, right? Yeah. So she was sticking them to her face, and then I come in and I say, okay, the Aurora's out. Let's all go out and look. So everybody's, putting my parkas, this, that, and the other. And then she walks outside and I don't know, something about the cold and the glue or whatever. And they just go, fell off her face. But anyway, she still had a great time watching the Aurora. But my real pro tip was going to involve battery rotation in cold weather. And so, I've been shooting lately my Aurora with an A7S II. I haven't pulled the trigger on the 3 yet, but it is notorious for poor battery life. And so I've actually got a multi-battery rotation. Sometimes I'll have 3, 4, 5 batteries because I've been trying to do a lot of video of the Aurora lately, which also sucks the juice.
Chews up
and
the
so,
batteries, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll go through and I'll shoot a battery until it's done. Or it says it's done, and then I'll put it in an interior pocket, put another one in, and shoot that till it's done, and then put it in the warm-up pocket, and then put a third one in. And then I've kind of settled on 3 as the right rotation for me, but sometimes if it's real cold, I'll do 4. And then put that third battery in. And if you're keeping those batteries that have already been spent warm, by the time you finish that third battery, that first battery is going to be back to where it's usable and you can stick that back in. Now, the tricky part about this is modern parkas have a lot of pockets and you've got a lot of layers. So you got to have a system before you go out to know which pocket has which battery. It's kind of like watching Michael manage memory cards out in the field. It's like, okay, this is going over here, this is going over here, that one over there. But it is important at keeping track and having a plan before you go out. Because when you go out and that 40 below hits you right in the lungs, you're not going to want to have to come up with your system in the dark.
Hey, that's a good tip. But when you were referencing shooting video of the Aurora, do you have like a go-to setting where you kind of start for ISO on that particular camera, or a range that you would recommend people go to?
Well, so yeah, and really the S models are the ones that really do it right.
Built for
frankly.
low light with those smaller sensors.
Built for that low light, yeah. Some of the others can do it, but there's a lot of noise and things like that. Ray and I were trying it with the R5. I never saw the finished product, but he at least attempted it and definitely got something. But so with my A7S II, I'm rolling with a 24 millimeter Rokinon T15 Cine lens, which is kind of a hidden gem, really. Like it's a Cine lens, doesn't mean you can't take pictures with it. And so I'll usually I put it on 1/10 of a second, and like all and that I feel like that gives it that buttery, flowy Aurora. There's a little more
kind of
flow
time-lapsey.
Well, if you're like matching your frame rates and things like that, it's just not as buttery is the best.
Yeah, I get it.
Word I've come up for it. It makes it
A little bit of motion blur.
Yeah, exactly. And which is Aurora is by nature, like you're looking at it, you're like, is that blurry? Is that me? I don't know. So I'll shoot it at 1/10 of a second, and I will at 1.5, and then usually between 16,000 and 25,000 ISO.
Wow.
And then I'm a photo guy, right? I started with an AE1. I'm not a big video editor or anything like that. So what I'll do is I'll put the file on my computer, and then I will beam it to my phone, and I will take the noise out on my iPhone 13 Pro. Just in the well, there's not that much noise to start with. It just takes like a little noise adjustment. But it's just so much easier. Like I've never bothered to learn how to do it on my computer. It just is so easy on the phone. And really, frankly, I'm using this for content on the interwebs anyway.
That's where people are going to watch it. Yeah. Consume
yeah. All I need to do is make it look good on a Pro Max phone. It really works out great.
Have you ever tried Topaz denoise on Aurora shots?
On Aurora shots, yes, but not on. I don't. Can you do video?
You can now. Yeah, you can.
Okay.
They've got
You can now?
Aurora's got a new video software. And
Topaz does.
Topaz, Aurora. Topaz does, but it takes a long time, obviously, because we were just talking to, who was that, Jason? Scott Keys.
Oh, geez. Scott Keys, that's right. Yep.
Because it basically is building frames in between the frames. So it's not only using the AI, but it's building additional frames. So it can take, all night to do.
Well,
some
and
of this
it's treating
stuff,
it's treating
it's
each
treating
frame too, right?
yeah, treating the ones that
Or
are
you could
there
just-
and building new ones.
Or you could just put it on your phone.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to.
Well,
So
I have one
Go
more
ahead,
question. So if it was an A7S3, you say you're using A7S2.
yeah.
Is the A7S3 good enough to cut that ISO in half, or no?
I haven't.
You'd be at the same
Had anybody
ISO,
let
but
me
it'd
use
be
it.
you'd be at the same ISO, but it'd be cleaner
Maybe a tad bit cleaner.
a little bit. Yeah.
If anybody wanted me to send, or if anybody wanted to send me one for me to test that out, I would be more than happy.
I can tell you where there is one.
Oh
You
yeah,
just have to.
Oh, yeah.
You just have to locate
you
it.
got to go find it.
Is this like geocaching?
Nate Luby sent one up into the Aurora on a weather balloon, and they got one back. It was a sponsored by Sony trip. They launched this baby in a weather balloon. It was in a case, and one they got back. The other one got some wind drift, and they were not able to locate it.
And the balloon didn't pop. So the balloon will pop
Right.
when it gets to a certain elevation, and it didn't. The conditions
This
were just
one
right
didn't,
where it just
so
kind of
it
floated.
drifted.
So ET's got a badass new camera.
Got a sweet low light camera. Yeah.
So the other two lenses that I've had really good luck doing video on that body with are not the G Master, just the regular G 20 millimeter. How fast is that one, Isaac? You probably have it in the shop there. No, the 20.
It's probably a 1.8
Yeah. So that, and then they're what is it? The new 16.
or 1.4.
So those are the other two lenses I've had really good luck. I just like how it looks. I like the Sony's got a little weird color thing going on for me, so I usually desaturate it a bit just to make it match what the eye sees a little better, rather than some of those neon things and stuff like that. But yeah, that's my go-to setup. And I really, for this pro tip, I was really only intending to talk about batteries, but
That's all right. It was a pro tip plus.
Well, and it piggybacked right on Ron's perfectly, because if you have the
Yeah.
cold case pouches and then you have your system in your jackets with your batteries, I mean, that's an even better warm-up situation.
I wanted to add with those cold case gear cases, they're not just for winter use because they are waterproof and dustproof when you seal them up. So, if you're doing some night sky stuff in the summertime, you can throw your filters in there, take them out on your four-wheeler or whatever, however you're getting around, and you've got a dustproof case as well when you drop filters for the nighttime shots. So they are multi-purpose.
Sweet.
And I'm not talking about dropping your UV filter for the Aurora. I'm talking about dropping your neutral density off because it's dark.
All right,
How about
so
you,
I'm
Mike?
last. So last night I was flying up here to Alaska to do this shoot, and I had to edit these podcasts, right? Because I have to have enough podcasts to cover those days when I'm gone. And I'm editing away on the plane, and my battery starts to go, and I'm like, oh, no big deal. I'll plug it into the plane, and away we go. Turns out that the whatever power requirements these newer laptops have, that plane won't charge it. There's not enough power to go through whatever. And I'm not using anything fancy. It's not the latest and greatest Mac. It's the one before that.
The M1 probably.
No, before that. It's the one version before that, whatever that was. And it's just your typical little charger packet, but it wouldn't charge. And I'm like 95% done with this podcast. And I'm like, how the heck? I don't want to wait because I wanted to get it all prepared. I had a Goal Zero battery in my bag, and I'd bought it for another shoot quite a while ago with the intentions of running on a laptop, but we never tried it. I never thought it would work, or we didn't need to try it. So I pulled that out of my bag and I plugged it in, and it sure enough it charged the laptop. So I got about a 50% charge. I had to plug it in using USB-C and not USB, but it's the, I don't know, Goal Zero, and it's called the Sherpa 1000.
That's a small battery.
It's not that big, really.
Throw that in your pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the iPhone 17
Pro Max.
Go 3 battery rotation. You're going to have a backpack with that bad boy.
Well, I consider that small because my video batteries are bigger than that.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So, but it was slick because I was able to plug it in, and I got the podcast edited, and it got me through. So, if you're caught in some backcountry adventure and you got to try to download your stuff, then it's not going to carry you through a whole. It's not going to replace that battery, but it got it back. It got it to about 50%.
And apparently, you can take them on airplanes.
If you're carrying it on, you can. You can't check it on, but you can carry it on, and it was fine. So it was kind of a serendipity kind of thing to have it.
You just can't rub them together on the plane. Got to have them in separate pockets.
And just remember which pocket it's in.
Right.
Well, so
that's awesome.
Gentlemen, as of now, I am going to go ahead and declare Michael Mauro our first Wild and Exposed Trivia champion.
Woohoo!
And we'll have to decide whether these scores carry through the season. Is there going to be one?
No, we're starting over.
Grand champion at the end, or
except I doubled the answer. If we were doing
digging a hole.
Price is Right, I was long gone.
Yeah. So congratulations, you've earned yourself a Wild and Exposed ball cap, and
well, thanks.
you could just go take that out of your inventory.
Which you're currently wearing.
I got to tell you, Drew, this has been a lot of fun, and I think it should be something we do a lot. Because if you're into it, this was a blast, and it was a good way to learn a lot of stuff. I mean, and it's such varied topics, so that was really cool. And good job on coming up with those questions.
I was trying to give shout outs to timely remember to apply for your McNeil lottery, and
I'm glad you said that because I want to apply for that, and I would have forgot. I forgot last year.
Yep.
And
you've got till the end of February.
Well,
quite honestly, I mean, Michael's lived enough more years than the rest of us that he ought to know more.
Well, that's what threw me ahead was that Kodak answer. You guys are too young to remember Kodak.
Your buddy that made that first camera.
Yeah. Yeah, and you were snickering at my 1977.
I was actually.
I wasn't too
I
far
thought
off.
you were way premature, but no. All right. Well, thank you guys very much. Thanks you all for listening to another episode of Wild and Exposed. And if you would do us a favor, give us some feedback on the trivia format. And if you learned something, great. If not, send Drew Hamilton some better questions or some different questions.
Oh, and one more thing before we go. We have a couple spots open on our fall bear trip. And Drew, I'm sure you have some spots open. Is there anything you want to throw out for some upcoming trips that you could try to fill up?
Well, we've got spots for Aurora season still. It's pretty. We've got a few different packages where you could some include flights from Winnipeg, or if you're already in Winnipeg, we just can get you up. And there are flight schedules. Some include weekends, and we've got a few different options for you, just so you can decide what's right for you. And then we're gearing up. We're going to be releasing our summer schedules here soon for beluga whales, and then of course our fall time where we've got the overlap where you've got the potential to see polar bears, beluga whales, and northern lights all in the same trip, basically. So that's going to be coming out here soon. So for those that want to check a bunch of stuff off your list all at one shot, that's going to be the time frame for you.
And where do they go to find that, Drew? What's the best website?
You can go to discoverchurchill.com.
And then what's your Instagram handle? So do you have a link on your Instagram, like in your bio, that takes into that site, or how do you work?
Yeah, actually, you can go. Yeah, my link, my little link up top will take you right there. So my Instagram handle is DrewHH, and it'll get you pretty much where you need to go.
Perfect.
Hey,
and I have
Isaac.
one more thing. Go ahead.
Hang on real quick. Isaac, for you, where can people find your content, your TikTok, your Instagram, and any web content that you have?
Yeah, my Instagram is Isaac's Pics with a Z at the end. That's the same on TikTok as well. You can find me by typing that in on TikTok. For those of y'all who have TikTok out there.
Obviously, everybody's found you on TikTok.
Yeah, I guess, man. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. My website for prints and everything should be in my Instagram bio. So
Spell Isaac for us, because some people won't get it.
yeah, so it's ISAAC.
Perfect.
Isaac's Pics. Yep.
And the last thing we have is Precision Camera is doing an offer for people that want to sell used gear. So if you're in the market to sell some used gear, they're in the market to buy stuff. You know, with the supply things, you go to these stores nowadays and there's just not a lot of stuff on the shelves. So they're chewing through a lot of used gear. So they're looking for more used gear. And if you go to their site, you can click on used gear and tell them what you got. Tell them what kind of condition you think it is. And then they will respond with what the price is based off that condition. So you kind of have an idea what you would get for it if you send it off to them. If you decide to send it off, they will evaluate it themselves and give it their rating, which most times he said was the rating that you would give it. And then they just send you a check in the mail, or you can use that money towards a new purchase of a new camera. So the way to get that is if you go to our show notes page, you'll see all these little screenshots of what you got to do, but there's a more info section where you put in your gear information. And in that more info, just type in Wild and Exposed and you get an extra 10% on selling your gear. So it's a pretty good deal. And if you've just got a bunch of stuff and you want to just send it all to one place and be done with it, it might be a good option for you.
That sounds super handy.
Yeah. That's how I always sell all my gears. I just go to a camera shop and get it sold. So that's what I'm going to do with a bunch for these guys.
You've been listening to the Wild and Exposed podcast. If you haven't yet, please give us a rating and a review. And make sure you're subscribed so that you'll get every episode we produce as soon as we drop it. And as always, thanks for tuning in.
We're gonna make it someday. Nothing's gonna get in our way. We will be the biggest band in town.